Life is infinite energy coupled with limitless creative imagination. It is the invisible essence and substance of every visible form. Its nature is goodness, truth, wisdom, and beauty, as well as energy and imagination. Please say the affirmation on your program or the screen, with me with power.
Today, I accept change as part of the grand design, which is therefore for me. I change my thinking to align with ultimate reality, spiritual truth, and my life is now a glorious adventure, increasingly filled with more of every good thing. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you, Jen. So, life, this term called life, that we've maybe used in different ways over the years, but yet life with a capital L is one of the terms that Ernest Holmes used to describe the infinite source of all that is. Because even in his day, back in the 1920s, there were people who had objection to the word God. So it's not just something that's happening now. And the resistance was because all the dogma that goes with the word God. And so he said, well, let's just call it life then. So again, these were the kind of the people who were the leading edge in thinking about this the greater picture of ultimate reality, and so life. Now, what for me personally, the word God, I have no problem with it. In fact, it to me, it because I've been studying this for so long, since 1990, my idea of God is the same as this idea of life, and that those descriptions that he gave of life, wholeness seeking expression through everything, the idea of it being limitless creative imagination, this presence of the divine. And I'm saying it, I'm just reminding some of those who are used to calling God He, that if we're to be all inclusive, this presence is He, She, it encompasses all gender, all, because it's all in all. And that this presence is aliveness, awakeness, awareness, consciousness, but it's infinite in its nature. It's mind-blowing when we really get into contemplating the source of life that gave rise to this diverse and amazing universe, and lives in, through, and as each one of us as potential for creative expression, potential for more and more love, peace, joy, potential for solving the greatest challenges on the planet. All of that resides within each one of us. So as we deepen into our spiritual practices, meditation, we teach affirmative prayer here, which is coming from that place of knowing who we are in truth, individualized expressions of the divine. We use our word affirmatively to speak the spiritual truth into being, into expression. So life then, this idea of life with a capital L, takes on a whole new, grander, magnificent meaning for all of us. And then there's this thing called life with a small l, and that is what we're used to talking about, which is our human life, the human expression. Which, when you think about it, it's really it's the big L individualized, So, but still, in our human life, when we're in our the human mind of separation, it looks like life is a bunch of twists and turns and joys and sorrows and ups and downs, and when we don't have the bigger picture of what is really going on. So today I'd like to offer a bigger picture through a parable. And this parable sounds like a children's story. Our children are actually hearing the same thing, but it has some really deep meaning in it that I think will begin to stand out for you. So let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a spring that came up out of the mountain and began to head down the mountain, dancing and singing all the way down. And then as this stream then became, joining with other streams, became a wider river. And the river began to flow through the forests and hills and meadows and the meadows. And soon, over time, the desire to return and unify with the ocean began to appear. And so as the stream, which became a river, continued to move on toward the ocean, suddenly she began to become aware of the clouds up in the sky. And she began to desire to possess those clouds. And of course, the clouds are shifting and changing. They're impermanent. Their nature is impermanence. But she was so caught up in wanting to grasp and possess those clouds that she lost her way for quite some time. And she fell into despair and anger and resentment. She began to suffer. And so one day, the wind came along and blew the clouds completely out of the sky. The sky was completely clear. And she fell into deeper despair because she had been wanting the clouds. The clouds were gone now. And she got to the point where she was in such despair that she thought she would die. And then suddenly, in her despair, she began to hear a voice. What was that voice? That voice was something that was actually emanating from within her. And that voice was giving her some comfort that what she was really looking for was not the clouds, but it was something greater than that. And so she looked up and she saw the sky for the first time. Now, she'd been so focused on all the clouds, she hadn't seen the sky. And it was expansive, it was magnificent, it was to look at it just absolutely blew her mind. And then she began to realize, she began to hear within herself and hear her emotion. And that emotion showed up as the crashing waves on the rocks as she was moving down. She became more in touch with her own despair and also the awareness that looking for clouds along the way was really not what she wanted. It was something greater. Then she heard another voice within her that said, "Do you know that clouds are water? They're just simply water vapor. That they are born of water and they return to water. And you are water." So then there became an awareness of her unity with the clouds, no matter how they shifted or changed. So when the clouds came back, she no longer desired to possess them, but to simply say hello to them when they came and to say a gentle goodbye when they were on their way. And she then, over time, became happier and happier and happier and more content with life. And so one night, as she was contemplating the evening sky, the moon appeared, a full moon, and reflected in her waters like a beautiful jewel. And she began to see that there are so many gifts that are present when she takes time to reflect. No pun intended. And so as she turned within and reflected, she in the night sky, what happened then was a complete release and surrender into what is. And so she took hands with the moon and the sky, and they walked slowly, 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 slowly to the ocean. So I don't know if you saw yourself in that at all. I know I did. It's a good reminder. And there are three basic principles that I'd like to unpack with you right now that I think are so pertinent in this story. And so the first one has to do with being born of innocence. Born of innocence. You know, in New Thought teachings, we are of the idea that we are born innocent, pure, and in beauty. We're born of the source. And that we retain that essential innocence throughout in our entire lives, even in the midst of our behaviors that may not look that way, but that original innocence, not original sin, original innocence is who we are. And so I'm losing track here. Let me get back to my notes here for a second. So here's the thing. So in the story, when the river comes up out of the spring and becomes a stream, there to me is the symbol of the purity, the beauty, and the innocence of our newborn selves. I mean, I'm just looking at how some of the imagery fits together here. And there's also something that innately yearns to return to source in all of us. We feel that when we meditate. I don't know how many of you notice that, but I know when I meditate and the mind starts calming down, the body starts calming down, that there is a peace that comes up within me, comes up from the surface, from the interior, and then just that beautiful connection is so powerful. So we come in that way, fully connected, but then we begin to have increasing amnesia as we go through life. And there's a beautiful little story that I think depicts this so well. And many of you have heard this before. There's a story of a couple who had a young son and a newborn, a four-year-old son and a newborn. The 4-year-old wanted time with the baby alone. And in fact, he was quite insistent. And the parents were really reluctant because, it's still not quite comfortable with having him alone with the baby. So they decided to turn on the monitor and listen in. And this is what came out of the mouth of the big brother. Tell me, baby, what is God like? I'm starting to forget. Yeah. So we come to life innocent, pure, with a deep sense of our connection. We're always connected to Source, but a deep awareness and sense of connection to Source. And in this beautiful parable, the ocean, the sky, are really the examples of that source. Then we get distracted by clouds. All those things that we want to possess, which are impermanent, which is, we could call it the transitory world of effects in our teachings. The things that come and they go, and we possess them. It's like, oh, this is my goal, I want this, and we possess it, and then we go, oh, but I'm still not happy. And then I want this, and I'm still not happy, and then I want that. Get it? Still not happy. So, if anybody identify with this? Right, right. And there's a Buddhist principle that I think speaks to this so beautifully, and it says that we suffer when we chase after our desires. And no desires, no suffering. So, for those of us who've been in New Thought for quite some time, we might be thinking, well, but I thought that we learned that desires mean desire of the Father, that they are of the source and seeking expression in us, through us, and as us. So, how does that fit? And this is how I think it all fits together. The difference is between clinging and, having something we'd like to do and trusting and letting go and letting the universal law support us and bringing it into being. So yes, we can plant seeds of things we desire, but it's about not clinging to it because it's the clinging that causes the unhappiness. It's like, I've got to have it. Oh my gosh, I don't have it. I'm so unhappy. I don't have it. That's when we suffer. So this doesn't mean that we go through life and we deny ourselves of everything in order to have no desires. It's the quality of what we're talking about here. So if we quit chasing clouds, if we open ourselves up to what really feeds us, which is the source of all that is, which we find within the very center of our own being, that ocean of life, then things begin to change. And there's another aspect to this. So it's not about chasing clouds, but it's also about loving them into being. If we focus on loving and feeling grateful for what we already have, this is an abundance principle that we teach here. If we focus on loving and feeling grateful for what we have, then see what we do is we relax our bodies when we do that. And we allow the universal creative process to work in us and to bring us more of the good that we desire. And ultimately, I believe we find out that those things out there are not the source of our happiness, but it's the state of mind that we cultivate within us. Then we can learn to be happy with all kinds of things. But the interesting thing about this is when we're stressing that we don't have, we literally push what we desire away. But when we are happy and love what is, we actually attract more and more good. Very interesting principle, but an important one to get. And that's why this chasing after clouds idea, I think, is so powerful and key for me personally. And I trust it is for you too. Ernest Holmes in The Art of Living says, "You do not have to beseech life to be good or to bring good into your life. Life is like the sun. It shines on everything. So get out of the shadows. Open the windows of your mind. Open the doors of your soul. Let your thought and there's let. Lift your thought and let life be to you whatever you wish it to be." So there's a letting, a relaxing, an allowing. It's a deep breath. Letting spirit work in you, through you, and as you. The third principle, the return to the ocean or surrender to source is what we call it. Now, the word surrender for many has a very disempowering sound to it because we think of waving the flag, I surrender, or conceding loss, giving up. We may think of surrender that way, and that's why for many of us it's such a challenge to do this thing called surrender to the source. what it really is all about is surrendering to a greater version of who we are in truth. It's surrendering the old, uptight, grasping, clinging self, letting go of that and all the beliefs that go with that, and opening up to that version of ourself that knows we are one with all that is, that lives in trust and faith, and that is therefore an expression of radiance and love and peace and joy and goodwill. So this is about divine union, a sense of divine union. And Ernest Holmes in The Art of Living says, our highest satisfaction comes from a sense of conscious union with this invisible life. So what life is really about then is this returning to the source, this state of surrendering to the all that is and allowing life then to move in us, through us, and as us, instead of trying to do it on our own. So it's just much easier. So the river's journey then helps us get real about life, this beautiful little parable, reminding us that we were born in original innocence, beauty, and purity. We are born of life. That we lose our way after we chase after what we don't have rather than loving it into being by loving what is and feeling grateful for what we have. And our deepest satisfaction of life is being in conscious union with the source then, the surrendering into the all that is. So let's spend a few moments. I'd like to invite our practitioners to surround the room in prayer, knowing that we are of this one source, born of original innocence, that we're no longer chasing clouds, but truly practicing gratitude and loving what is. Lovely. Thank you, Carolyn. All right. So everybody just open your hearts and receive. So I know that there is only one source, one life, one infinite ocean of being that is pure innocence, pure love, whole, perfect, complete. That life is infinite, limitless creative imagination, limitless energy, that this all that is, this unmanifest presence of the divine, which I call God, is life itself in all of its magnificent glory, and that I am that life. Everyone in this room is that life. We are that life individualized in all of the qualities, all of the essence of that life, the wholeness of that life, the beauty of that life, the perfection of that life resides within each and every one of us. So we are one. We are of the same source, even though we are individualized in ways that make us appear to be different, that there is truly that oneness that binds us all. I know that as we let go of chasing clouds, as we begin to embrace and love what is, and plant the seeds of our desires with a great awareness of truly letting go and trusting the universe to support the whole process of creation. I know that what is happening then is just an amazing revelation that we already have everything we need right here and right now, and how glorious and how wondrous that is. So my heart is just shining, radiant, open, and receptive to the truth of this word, to the beauty and grace of each and every person in this room, to the already knowing that happiness, joy, peace resides within all of us right here and right now. Everybody